2500 HD. It's a 2011. Paint shiny, looks good. It's not all peeling and screwed up all over the place. Oh, but it was. I made a video earlier today and somehow I deleted it. So we're just going to do a short one on this, which is fine because I talk too much. So that'll work out. So what we got going on, from this line down and the hole underneath was peeling and rusty. No holes, no significant rot, a little bit of pitting. Bottom of the doors, a little bit of wear from those rubbers that, you know, sand gets stuck in them. And then every time you open and close the door, you're sanding paint off the truck. They weren't bad on this, so we had to fix that. I did that to all 4 doors. We're just going to blow that in with a little bit of color and clear. Little fade out spray up in this area. You'll never know it was touched. Don't use fade out spray on the outside. Well, you can if you want, but I don't. It does funny things, but in your jams, who cares? So what did we do? The reason I'm even doing a video on this truck, I don't really care about this truck because it's kind of boring. There's nothing cool about it. I was thinking about when I was younger and you do the do-it-yourself thing. So you're young, or you're not young, but maybe you're just doing it at home, right? And you're like, well, I got a truck and there ain't a lot of miles on it, so why don't I fix my truck? There's just some blemishes across the bottom. We'll we'll grind it off, clean it up, spray bomb primer, spray bomb paint, gravel guard, whatever you do. And I'm sure a lot of people have done it and it looks great. And then 3 months later, a bunch of blisters pop up, or the rust all comes back in 6 months. And it just sucks because you did all this work. You blew through $400 or $500 and you're like, I'm mad now. I'll never do that again. I'm going to take it to the shop where they do magical voodoo and it never comes back. So anyway, this video is for you do-it-yourself guys. This isn't for the pros. But I mean, you know, anybody can watch anything, so that's cool. But what we're going to talk about is how do you keep it from coming back? Now, of course, it always depends how bad it is. If it's rotten, you got to cut it out. Now, the case of this truck, and as you can see, really good shape. Like, usually these Chevys, the whole front fender, the paint's all peeled off, so this guy looked after his, but whatever the case may be, it was nice. So what did we do? You gotta look at rust in 2 ways, and there's 2 things you gotta do. And there's a lot of products that say they'll do both. So you gotta neutralize the chemical makeup of the rust. Okay, vinegar, muriatic acid, bunch of different ways. You'll see YouTube videos on how to do all that stuff. Sure, all of them work. But you got to neutralize the acid later. So you got to wash it in, you know, sometimes they'll do like baking soda and water, wash the hell out of it, which works. Soap and water after that, and so on and so on. Your wax and grease remover, thinner. You know, so all these things work. So what a guy does is he'll come wherever it's peeling and rusty, he'll grind the crap out of it, put a little filler on here and there, spray bomb, some primer, 1K primer, because it's spray bomb, right? Now, the thing with 1K is it's porous, which means it absorbs things like SpongeBob SquarePants, which, you know, you don't want that because you've seen the cartoon and it's really bad. So you don't want that happening to your truck, right? Now, gravel guard is something that I wouldn't use for a lot of years because when I was younger, to me, that was something where let's do some quick work, gravel guard it and call it a day. You can hide a lot. But if you walk up to a Toyota Corolla, you'll see where they have their version of gravel guard. And they basically do all, see the big flat spot? They do all the flat spots. And what they do here is, hang on, they come up so far and it just fades into nothing. Now, if you look at a brand new Tundra on the lot, they come up about 4 inches and you can see what looks like a tape line. The cool thing about the Corollas and the Camrys and stuff that have metal on the bottom instead of all the plastic junk is you don't notice it because it just, the paint is smooth and then there's nothing and then your car's a bit dirty down there and you never notice it. till you go do body work and change a fender or something or a door and you realize, oh wow, I can't believe I got to shoot like 2 ounces of gravel guard on the door to match it to the rest of the car. Now, what I did in this truck, all of our damage was down low. I like how it fades out. Now, you get this overspray with little bumps. That's going to be under the paint, so you won't even notice it. It's going to all look the same. So, first thing you got to do is neutralize it. So what did I use on this particular truck? Well, first, took a roll lock and a couple grinders and some pretty rough paper, 36 and 40 grits. Grinded all the paint and all the junk and all the scale off. Now, you can use Pour 15. Now, in Canada, we have something called DOM 16. It's a Canadian company that's making Pour 15. That's all it is, same product. Or at least it's a very similar product, if not the same. So the smart thing to do would be to read the can and Pour 15, put Pour 15 on the whole entire rocker. And then it's painted black. Well, two things happen with that. One, what a bugger to sand. Things don't like to stick to it well, so you got to prep it well. And two, in the case of this truck, which wasn't rotten and wasn't all pitted, 95% of the metal came super clean. Those products don't stick to super clean metal unless, when you read the directions, there's a Pour 15 prep that you put on first. It's an acid etch, which etches the metal. They claim the Pour 15 will stick better. I don't know how strong that is and how well it works. Now, a lot of the times if it's rusty, like that right there, if you put Pour 15 on that, it's on there. It absorbs it, it sinks in. The first coat goes funny. That ain't coming off. Now, that takes care of the converting rust. And you can get rust converters and spray bomb rust converters. They kind of do the same thing, sort of. Here's where they fail. The second coat you put on, because they say 2 coats with Pour 15 or DOM 16, the second coat is an encapsulator. And everyone thinks, well, that's just putting paint on it. But what it's doing is you're trying to find something that'll dry tight and stick on. If air can't get in, it slows the rust down to almost nothing. So anything that didn't get converted can't breathe. And if it can't breathe oxygen, it can't rust. So what I did on this truck, and you can use some of these rust treatments, rust mort, and there's a few other ones along that line. You put that on, it works pretty good. There's a bunch of stuff that leaves, it's like a paste, it'll leave a black coating. If you put that on and walk away, fine, like on tractor equipment, and it works great. But when the metal's this shiny, a lot of the top coats are funny with that stuff as far as chipping off goes. So what I did, I happen to have DOM 16 here. So I basically put 2 coats, and it goes on super thin, so it doesn't take much. I put 2 coats on the rockers, let it eat for 24 hours, and then it's dry. Then what I did is I grabbed a sander, and I can't remember the grit I used. I think it was like 80. And I sanded the whole bottom side of the rocker where the black stuff was, and as well as those sides down there, because all the paint from this line down was all peeling and rusty. We sanded that right back off. Now here's the kicker. The stuff doesn't stick well to clean metal. And because all that metal was mostly clean, when I went to sand it off, most of it came off. There's a few places on the bottom where there was some pitting. It stayed. And of course, it stays in the pits. And people would be like, why would you grind it all off after putting it on? Don't you want it to protect? Well, I want something to protect. I don't believe that's going to do the job right, because anything that can chip off that easy sucks. But it does go in and it does convert the rust. So I used it as a rust converter, and I went along the whole bottom of the truck. And on the doors, there's a few little spots, nothing major. Most of that cleaned up nice. All under this edge, all the way around. The bottom back there, and you get the idea. A couple places behind the bumper here where it had blown out. So when I hit that with the sander, most of it came right off. But like I said, it is now converted. So now you got to encapsulate it. Well, why not leave the Pour 15 on? Well, as I just explained, on shiny metal, the Pour 15 does not stick. You can tell me it sticks. Now maybe with that prep stuff, it'll stick better. I don't know about that. But I looked at the tests, what Project Farm does a bunch of videos. It was in the top 5, but it wasn't amazing. So even this is swirled pretty rough, this old Firebird fender, right? The Pour 15 is going to chip off of that. You give it a little poke test. I don't mean like jam at it with a screwdriver. I mean just kind of touch it. It's coming right off. So this is why I'm saying, you know, maybe use rust mort or something like that, something liquid. But the Pour 15, the reason I like it, it does stick on the truck when it's wet, and it allows it that 24 hours to do the thing that it does. So even if you take it all off, who cares? It is expensive, but it lasts a long time. I've been using the same quart for about a year on multiple jobs, right? So a lot of trucks, you will see where they get rust up here above the window, above that rubber trim. And I've had where they're rotten and you take the windshield out. And if there's a bunch of pitting and it's solid, I Pour 15 the hell out of it. And the only place that the sander's going to take it off is where it's not pitted. You're going to float over it. So it's treated. Now what you do after it's treated, and this to me is the magic voodoo that makes things last, epoxy primer. So not a big secret, but if you're a guy doing it at home, you're going to go to the parts store and they're going to hand you a spray bomb, you know, some kind of spray paint primer in a can. They're all 1K, which means they're mostly lacquer based. It's porous like a sponge, not good. It won't starve from the air, even with the paint, even with the clear coat. Now, people don't realize this. Clear coat can breathe. Base coat can breathe. All these products can breathe. They're not extremely porous, but they're a little porous. But the cheap primer underneath is like a sponge, and that's what fails, right? So what you've got to do is encapsulate it. And I find if I do the Pour 15 trick, get rid of the rust. Now, I went around the whole wheel arch because this was all kind of peeling, right? So this is what happens. CRE 321. That's what this is. It's a 2-part epoxy primer that's sandable. I sanded this off. Gosh, I basically went around the whole truck because after I did the Pour 15 thing where I had to do it, we ran the epoxy primer basically just a little bit below that gravel guard line, all the way across the bottom. There's like 1 coat near the top, 2 coats by the bottom of the doors. The rockers have 3-4 coats on them. These sides have 4 coats, nice and thick, so it gave me something to plane out because this was all rough and I didn't feel like doing the bodywork. So it's smooth as glass now. I missed a spot from here to here. See it? See how rough and bumpy that is? Like, it's thick. I'm going to have to go over that with a bit of 320. Doesn't take long. So what I would suggest, if you're at home and you're doing this yourself, you fix up all your little spots, you touch them all up, do the Pour 15 thing, leave it on if you want. I would sand it off, but let's say you leave it on, it might work. But the key to me, you got to seal it, you got to encapsulate it. Epoxy primer is the way to go. I basically have epoxy primer fading from here and from here down. It's solid. 2-3 coats here, 3-4 coats under here. I wonder if you can catch it here. You can see a little bit of gray color there. That's epoxy primer. I'm going to go ahead and paint over this and come up to here. Bottom of these doors were fine. There was just a little bit of paint chew from the rubbers. So I treated that. Why not? Why not do it the same way? I know it's going to be good. These Chevys are always really bad right in here. And so are the Fords and Chevys or Dodges or whatever, Toyota. I'm sure everything is bad right here. 2-3 coats of epoxy primer. We held that back, shot it in. You get the idea. So what I would suggest, because I don't know if you can buy it on Amazon, you can probably go on Amazon and get some little kits with epoxy primer. Don't know how well they work. I'd bring $100 bill, go down to the local body shop. I'm one of those body shops where you got the cool old dudes that want to help everybody and they know how to fix everything. Some of the collision shops are a little bit funny, and I'm not picking on anybody in particular, just some of them will be a little bit cagey about selling to the public because, you know, the whole professional use only thing on the can and blah blah blah. But I mean, hey, if you want to spend $400, go down to the parts store and just buy a gallon. I don't know if you can get it in quarts or not. I always buy everything by the gallon, so I'm sure there's something on Amazon. But yeah, epoxy primer is the way to go. I use the CRE 321 because, I mean, look at it. It does body work. Like, the stuff is amazing. It's like glass, and I sanded it with 320 on a DA. I don't have a day's worth of hours into this truck to where it's at now. So, you know, and the customer, he wanted gravel guard, which is why it's on there. I believe with the epoxy primer like this, we don't need the gravel guard. But the reason he wanted it, and I don't disagree, I actually agree with him in this case. The guy does some gravel roads, so we fix the rust. We put a whole bunch of this primer on it, nice and thick on the bottom. You can paint over it within 3 days if you don't, without sanding it, which is cool. Now I sanded this because I used it for body work, but down underneath, it's under gravel guard. I didn't do that at all. I did it within less than 24 hours, so the gravel guard will stick right on there, and I mean, it's like a glue. You know, the little bit of solvent in the gravel guard, it's like the primer's still sticky, so the two of them bind. So I mean, that's really on there. But the reason we put it on the gravel guard, stones coming up off the tires and off the dirt road, you're giving it some meat, so the stone, it takes a while to chip through and make it all the way in there, right? So the idea is this truck, I mean, back here, why not? Didn't need it. We're not hiding nothing, but why not put it on? I did it this way, so it just, you know, little bumps will start and then it'll be gravel guard, but it'll be, you don't really, it doesn't look like an eyesore. Like, you run it too thick and you run a tape line. Now, sometimes I'll do what they do on the Tundra. At 4 inches, I'll run a tape line. And what I do is I shoot one coat across the tape, half and half, and then I never shoot that area again. So that would give you, like, say, a tape line here, and then I start painting from here down too, and, you know, on my third coat I go a little lower. So it actually progressively gets fatter as you get lower. That way at the tape line it's not thick. And a lot of us do the first time we use it, or the first 20 times we use it, we'll run a tape line, we'll put on like 4 fat coats, pull the tape, and then it's a little funny and there's like a really harsh line. That stands out. This, 90% of the walking people out in the world looking at it will never even see that that was done, unless they walk right up and look at it or someone points it out. But it won't be ugly. Now, a little bit overspray got here, we'll sand that off from about here up, like these little dots here. I'll sand those off. We don't need the bumps that high, but I'll probably come up to about here with the sander just to take the excess off that goes a little too high, right? So that it just sort of starts here, like it grades in, and from here up there'll be nothing. So we will take the 320 on the sander just to take that top edge off. Well, that's it for today. I believe that's probably some of the voodoo that the do-it-yourselfers are looking for. Paint gun, Harbor Freight, Princess Auto, Home Hardware. In fact, you know what? Here's what you do. Every day at Home Hardware, you can buy this benchmark gun with a 1.3 or a 1.5 tip, and I think they had 1.8s. I used a 1.8 tip. This is a $33 gun. Yeah, all the parts are there. I opened it up for the other video, ironically, the one that I deleted. I took a marker, put a mark straight up, because I can set that one turn in when I'm ready to use it. Look, this gun's never been used. The only reason I have this, if something goes wrong with any gun I have, this is cheap, it's 30 bucks. I was at the store, I bought it, threw it on the bench. It's gonna live there till one day I need it. Maybe I want to trim clad a trailer. Rust-Oleum, whatever. I don't want to put it through my nice gun. Going to grab that, do a paint job, and I'll tell you what, a gun this bad will paint a car like this right out of the box 99% of the time like any other gun, if you know how to set your gun and how to paint it. So keep that in mind. Cheap Chinese guns. There's two of them right there. One has a very strange banana-shaped pattern to it, which is too bad because it worked good. This guy here, this was at a Timber Mart about 15 years ago. I've painted probably 20 cars with that gun, and one day, instead of a nice straight pattern, it was a crooked pattern, which is too bad because that, I think it was like $19.99, or maybe it was 10, 20 bucks. It was super cheap. Should have bought 6 or 8 of them and threw them on the shelf. But that is a slightly more expensive gun, but you know, it's not $1,000 gun, probably like a $250 gun from 10 years ago. What is it, a W something? Well, whatever it is, Max Air or something. Don't care. It works, but it's an orange peely prick no matter what you do. I just hate that gun. It's like the air coming out is too much and the fluid's not enough, and it's a fight. What do I use? Yeah, all my other stuff is put away in the shelf. We won't go into oh, here we go. This is a gun that surprised me. This is a ProTech 4500 HVLP. It's probably a middle of the road gun. I think I needed it in a pinch, and I said I need it in like a day or two. So the parts store guy said I can get you this like right away. I think it was like 250 bucks taxes in. I've painted, well, if you look back on my videos, this gun painted the Dodge Dart about a year ago. I painted some stuff before that. But it's painted everything I've done in the last year. And I mean, it's pretty good. If anything goes wrong with it, it's me, it's user error, it's not the gun. What I find with these guns, buy this, put this on. If you're painting one car, look, get a test panel, figure it out. But I like that because I can kind of go up and down and control it, especially metallics. I always run one of these because, well, that's another story. We'll go into that in a different video. Anyway, we'll talk later. That's enough for now. Do it yourself, guys. Fixing a little bit of rust. Treat the rust. Convert it. Encapsulate it somehow. I'd recommend epoxy primer. And then after that, whatever work you do, at least it ain't going to bubble off on you within a few months. Anyway, that's it for today. Cheers.